And welcome back to Bars Loaded Podcast with Ben and Nick. Welcome back to Bars Loaded. It's already a shit show. We knew it was going to be.
7 seconds in.
7 seconds in. Solid start. Today, we're actually joined by my coach, who I actually not actively coaching me at the moment, but whenever I talk about Will, it's always prefaced as, my coach Will. So I think you'll always be my coach Will. But during that time, also became what I would consider a friend, and I would also consider probably one of Australia's greatest ever powerlifters and co-owner of one of the most successful powerlifting coaching services in the country, Will Crozier. Thanks for joining us, mate.
Welcome. Thanks for having me, man. I'm keen. I've been keen to sit on one of these podcasts. It's actually been a while since I've done a podcast externally to us. So not through avoiding them, but just not actively, actively.
Seeking them out.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I mean, we have our own podcast and then I get enough kind of rambling on that. So,
yeah. How long have you guys been doing your podcast now?
What's that?
How long have you been doing the Nexus podcast for now?
And I don't even know. It's like, you know how like you have your episode numbers or whatever, and then like I reckon within a few months, I had no idea like where we were, what we had covered, anything. You just kind of keep going and you just kind of keep talking and you keep covering everything. But powerlifting is not a huge topic. Like it's a pretty straightforward, simple thing. So like you end up revisiting the same things and just having similar viewpoints and going around in circles. But I still feel like every week we add a few more layers to the powerlifting stuff on it. So yeah, it's been, well, since the gym is like 2 and a bit years old. So
and you've been podcasting since the gym opened?
A little bit less. Yeah, we built the podcast room and then jumped into it. Jordan Shallow was our first unofficial guest, and I say unofficial because the podcast, we were so newbie to podcasting at that point that we actually fucked it up. He came over, he did the podcast with it, and then we realized that we didn't know how to use some of the software and hardware and had the gain up so high, and then it completely clipped like all the audio, and it was so terrible. And I'm like, when am I going to get this guy to come back to the Gold Coast? Probably never. So yeah, that episode doesn't exist technically, but yeah, it's been a while since he came, which was a while ago.
Yeah, that's when you guys did the prescript thing at the gym.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah. That was a while ago. Wow. So the Bars Loaded podcast and the Nexus podcast have that in common, where Jordan was obviously our first guest as well.
Okay.
Which we just released last Friday or the Friday before. Yeah, so Jordan was our first guest, and then Will's following it up. So we'll it's I mean, our podcast is very similar to your podcast, where I always tune in and listen, and it starts off the first 5 minutes with a topic, and then it very quickly goes sideways.
Yeah, no,
you
I love that.
You always do a very good job at bringing it back.
I try. I'm always the guy now that's like, and let's go back. Like trying to like segue it, but it's like the worst segue ever. And I'm just like, you know what? Shut the fuck up. Let's get back to where we were.
I love watching the podcast on YouTube because I can see that you've got your phone on your lap, which you obviously have like show notes on your phone.
I try to keep some notes. Yeah.
And I can see as the conversation is just going off into the Netherlands, you're like looking down at your phone, trying to figure out a way to bring it back. And then, it gets to a point where you just turn your phone over and go with it.
Well, I'm glad you watch it. I haven't. I thought nobody watched it, so when we post it up on YouTube, I'm like, nobody's fucking watching me talk on this thing. Like maybe if somebody's bored in their car or some shit, then they'll listen. But nobody's watching it. But I'm glad we've got at least one watcher.
You've got at least one. You've got at least one loyal listener.
Oh, we've got
That's
Josh's
all it
mum as
takes.
well, so that's two.
Me and Josh's mum. Maybe we could have a watch party.
Yeah, hang out. Yeah, you love it. She gets really into it though, you know. She really likes to pump Josh up.
She likes to lift him up.
Like give him a bit of hype. Loves the Josh episodes.
I think that's something that all mums kind of have to do, though.
Yeah. Biggest supporter for sure.
Yeah.
But I don't think you can catch my mum listening to a powerlifting podcast. I think she'd get over it within 2 seconds. But
yeah, mine wouldn't understand what the fuck we'd be talking about.
But would still support it, and that's the point, right?
maybe not.
My mum came to nationals.
Oh yeah,
and
nice.
She was like, "I'm going to stay for the whole day and watch you. You've done really well to get to this. I don't understand what's going on, but I'll be there." And then after squat, she was like, "Hey, so I'm going to go, but you did really good."
Yeah. It is hard in a sport where it's literally you get 9 minutes, and if you don't know anyone else, it sucks. Like it's a potentially 6-8 hour day, whatever it is, where you only are cheering for those 9 minutes. It can be a hard sport to watch in that way. But I don't think my parents would come to any of mine. They just watch it on the live stream. My sister actually got kicked off I think it was Pro Rock 8 live stream because she was just so hyped. She'd log in and be like, "My brother's the best. He's going to fucking beat everybody," like blah, blah, blah. And then she kept going like that. And then she got kicked off it, got banned from the live stream. And then she created a fake account and then came back on and started saying the same stuff. And they're like, "It's pretty obvious who this is." So she's one of the few only people that have been kicked off a powerlifting fucking live stream,
Amazing.
Yeah.
That's a claim to fame in its own.
It is. Yeah. It's hard to do. It's rare you can get kicked out of that.
I mean, we're talking about fake world records in the masters and submaster divisions going into Instagram bios before we recorded. I feel like that's a really good Instagram bio worthy achievement.
Has been kicked off powerlifting stream.
Trust me.
Kicked off Pro Raw 7 stream twice.
Yeah. Not sure something that Mum would be proud of, but certainly an achievement. It's a unique achievement.
So, Will, this episode's obviously more about you than us. So, I would. Well, we have plenty of time to just talk shit on our other episodes, but man, I would love if you could just kind of take us through the early days of Will finding training. What initially got you into the gym? How did that look at the start? And then I guess throughout that journey, how did training then bleed into powerlifting, and what did that transition look like?
Yeah, so since forever, since I was very, very young, always been super active, sporty. I played rugby league, touch football, athletics, taekwondo, a little bit of just boxing and soccer, every sport you could imagine. Like, shout out to my parents there, used to drive me to and from sport probably 6 days a week. Got the 1 day off a week of that. But yeah, I guess that laid a big foundation for just the future of where I am now, where lifting, training, all that sort of stuff, and ingrained like sort of the mindset from it. So I'm lucky I was brought up like that. Also lucky I was brought up eating just constantly. My uncle calls me Shovels for good reason, and it's just because I just would put away an absurd amount of food as a kid. So 2 of the biggest skills that you need to become successful in lifting is just eating a fucking shitload of food and just being active and moving and knowing how to put in hard work, I guess. So those 2 skills lent pretty favorably when it came to lifting. I kind of went away from lifting and sport and everything when I joined the Navy, which was 18. and I was in that for a bunch of years. And then towards the end of that, so after about 4 or so years in of the first time in my life not doing sport and everything, I got reintroduced to the gym by a friend, and it came through work, because in the Defence Force, I was in Canberra as a 21-year-old, something like that, and not a whole lot to do in Canberra, honestly, at that age. Like, it's not the most fun young 20s place to be, but we did have a gym on base, and our job was pretty cruisy, as in, like, I did 12-hour shifts at the communication station there, and we just kind of like, we're basically like on call, like we were just waiting for shit to break, and then we would go and do something about it. So there's a lot of just like waiting around, and so our boss used to say, you happy for you to walk down to the gym as long as you take a walkie-talkie, and if we need you, you can we'll yell out, and then you can be back here in a minute or two and come fix whatever the hell's broken. So that's actually how I got back into the gym, because I was like, fuck, if I can go to the gym during work, I'll absolutely take that up. And I was just really lucky that my mate, who also worked with me, had a bit of a powerlifting sort of background to his training. He actually trained with Marcos when PTC was Marcos's garage. So he's PTC, before it was the PTC gyms and franchise, or whatever you want to call it, was just Marcos's garage. If you go back far enough, you can find the post, but it was just him running essentially kind of like little strength circuit training through his garage and just making people throw up with crazy kettlebell exercises. Loved his kettlebells and everything back in those days. And yeah, my mate trained there because he was a big car guy like Marcos is. And so, so when I got in the gym and he put me in the gym, our training defaulted, I guess, to a somewhat powerlifting-y sort of approach with a 20-year-old's let's just fuck ourselves up approach to it. And yeah, we just did that at the Navy base there and just went hard, just literally just like thrashed ourselves. Not any real program. I would just kind of like go in and do the lifts that I enjoyed and try to add weight to them, which funny enough was deadlifts pretty much from the get-go. And then from there, the gym was pretty dingy and it had a pretty rattly floor. I remember it being just like floorboards, and I was like, okay, I'm getting strong enough now that it was starting to rattle the floor a little bit. So I found a gym in town. I just looked up like strength training gym near me, whatever it was, and a gym in Fishwick came up, which was called Power Sports Club, which was an absolutely fucking awesome gym with an awesome gym owner named Chris, and he, for some reason, and I will never know the answer to this, but for some reason he just let me and my mate train free. We walked in and we're like, fuck yeah, this place is sick. Maybe we did one session and he saw how absolutely batshit crazy we were, and he just said, you guys can train for free. And which I would have paid because we had money. I had nothing to do in Canberra and I was getting paid pretty decently in defense. But for some reason, this dude, Chris, just let us train there for free. And so we went from thrashing ourselves on the minimalist equipment that we had in the Navy gym to thrashing ourselves on proper powerlifting gear. That's also where I met Shero. He was an equipped lifter back then and would just come in with his fucking Maccas and hit his equipped like layered squats and then go home. And I thought that was fucking awesome because he was like hitting weights that, were to me at the time just obscene. I was like, holy fuck, 300 squat, crazy. And then, yeah, so we started to learn different movements. Chris, not that he was around the gym a whole lot, but he would guide and say like, hey, instead of doing 8s on deadlift, try some like lower rep stuff. And so I was like, oh yeah, cool, that exists. And it started to do that. And then funny enough from there, like I kind of went down that road a lot, just learned how to train really hard, went really hard, started to get bigger, and then got out of the Navy, got into bodybuilding somehow, just through a different friend group when I moved to Cairns. Did a couple of years of bodybuilding, probably more like 3 or 4 years of bodybuilding, but 2 years like competitive sort of bodybuilding. My last one I did actual like bodybuilding and stripped down to, I think it was like the lowest body weight I hit was like something ridiculous, like 70 kilos. And then from there, I just didn't really enjoy it. I didn't enjoy the community of bodybuilding. I didn't enjoy the process really. I hated the fact that I was just so fucking weak. Like I was pretty decently strong just because our coach loved heavy lifts, thank God. But then in prep, I was just so weak. Like I was subdued to squatting on a fucking Smith machine, and I was just like, this really sucks. But I look good. And then, got there to the day, and then looking good is not really that fun when everybody's not super nice, and I didn't do as well as I'd hoped. So I was kind of like, fuck, this kind of sucks. And I was a bit unsure whether I would just continue bodybuilding. And my mate had done some equipped powerlifting in the past, and he's like, hey, there's this thing called powerlifting. They're starting to, like, Raw's becoming more of a thing now, which means you don't have to wear the stupid suit, which was the main thing I was against. And he's like, we should do this. We should do this states comp, which was Queensland States in 2015, GPC. And so we both started prepping for that, started doing hired a powerlifting coach, and just pushed into that. I was in sleeves at that comp, my one and only sleeves comp. Everybody else was in wraps and GPC, but I just didn't want to like commit to trying to learn wraps because I had no idea what the fuck a wrap was. And I was flat out just trying to learn powerlifting and trying to learn like heavy singles, doubles, triples, like actually like moving heavy weight, especially after a bodybuilding comp and changing, physique so ridiculously. And then I hit that comp. Everybody was just ridiculously supportive. It was just, I still like just remember the day so well. I remember waking up in the morning before the sun even got up, just hitting my stretches, being like fucking ready for it. Even prior to the comp, like looking up at all my competition and being like, I'm going to fucking do this and do that. And then I competed there, and it was just like, everybody's such a legend. Like everyone who I was against was cheering me on. Really good days of PTC Brisbane. So like all the Brisbane people were in one spot at that time rather than where it's now, where it's kind of everybody's spread out. It was just such a good day that I was just like, this is my thing, So, and then from there, I think got invited to Pro Raw 7 and never looked back.
That first comp, is that the comp that you ended up taking a fourth deadlift for a record, and not having any idea that you were in a position to do that?
Yeah. I had no idea what the records were, whatever. I was just trying to win. I'd never used a mono. I'd never used a deadlift bar. Didn't even know a deadlift bar existed. I was used to training at a bodybuilding gym with just like shitty bent, no knurling power bars. And got the comp. I had to learn the mono pretty quick, but didn't find it too hard because I was in sleeves, so it wasn't the end of the world. Hit a really, really happy squat and set up, like really good squat to set up the day, and then on the deadlift, I remember my goal was my entire goal for that day, like my biggest goal out of the day, other than win, was to hit a 300 deadlift, and really like just so honed in on that goal. And I thought I had it, based on all my training and everything. But then again, I didn't really know what a deadlift bar was. And so I get there and I remember doing the warm-ups and just being like, the fuck is happening? And turning to my friend Tyler, who was handling me and stuff, and going like, why am I so strong? Like, what the hell? And then, but we decided, let's stick with the plan and hit the opener, which I think was like 280. I think I planned on going like 280, 290, 300 or something, but I did 280. It was like just an absolute joke. Did 300 on the second. Again, a joke. And then I hit maybe 15 on the third, I think. Just moved too well. And then Scott Wasson, who was running the comps, like, dude, like, you should definitely take a fourth. The record was Fuzzies at the time, just 325. And then I'm like, well, I have no idea like what the fuck what the rules are. Like, what do I do? And he's like, well, you can literally chip it by half a kilo. And I was like, yeah, cool, do that. And so, he loaded up 325.5, gave me whatever it is, whatever the rule is, like 4 or 5 minutes. And I remember Critter and all those boys just trying to fucking shove sniffing salts down my throat. And I was just like, what is all this shit? Have no idea. But I ended up pulling that and breaking a record. So for the first comp, breaking a national record was pretty fucking cool, you know. And then that's obvious. You can tell why. Like I was just absolutely locked in at that point. I was just like, yeah, I'm definitely not doing bodybuilding ever again. Fuck that.
What weight was your first comp at?
That was at 100.
Nice.
But I actually cut, I think, 6 kilos. Just because like bodybuilding, man, I was just like used to like suffering a bit. So it didn't feel fucking right to like go in and feel comfortable. And looking back on it, absolute stupid move, and would never recommend it to anybody for their first comp. But I will, you know, a bit of a caveat, you know, I was very versed in dieting, very versed in my own body, stupidly consistent at that point, almost too consistent, I would say, in my nutrition and my training and everything was just more dialed in than it is now. And so it wasn't even that bad of a cut for me. But I did have to weigh in nude. I remember that. So first comp weighing in nude, pretty good.
Nice.
Perfect. Do you remember what
bodybuilding though?
What was that?
Pretty used to that from bodybuilding though, being fucking, you know, in next to nothing on stage. So I was like, whatever.
That's always what's turned me away from bodybuilding. That and the fact that I'm nowhere near in shape, but I use the nude. I use the nudity as more of an excuse.
Yeah, your height probably wouldn't lend to bodybuilding too well. It is a short man's game.
That's another excuse that I use.
Yeah, yeah, but it is a bit. It's so nerve-wracking because the posing is so much more difficult than people give it credit for. It just sucks. It's like so shit, especially in the first one I did was more like. I forget what the name of the category was exactly, but it was like the physique one, where you have to like look like you're enjoying yourself. Nobody's enjoying themselves out there really, unless they're like, you know, a veteran of it or whatever. It's just, I just remember being super nervous, shaking, and then trying to smile and being like, yeah, cool, I'm having fun. Not fun. Whereas in powerlifting, obviously, you can make all the faces you want and look as scary as you need to. That's much more up my alley.
So do you remember what your actual numbers were for that first comp?
280 squat. 280 squat in the sleeves. I think it was 160, either 162 or 167 bench, and then the 325.5 deadlift.
How long did it take you to go from those numbers to your all-time strongest? And what were the numbers at your all-time strongest?
Yeah, so that was 2015, and then man, I'm gonna have to pull up like Open Powerlifting or some shit here.
I've already got it open.
Oh, good. Yeah, well, you can. And then well, it depends because I competed in the 125s at not really 125, like 116, and they would have been my best numbers. My best 110 numbers would have been only a year or so before COVID shut us down, which was the local GPC states going around in a circle, which I think was 972 at 110. So, which is still the all-time Australian record. So, yeah, you can tell me which year that was, and then we can do the math there. I think it was like 7 years.
2021.
Okay, so 6 years. Yeah, six and a bit years would have been. About 6.5 years. So, pretty. I remember like at the start between 2015, 2016, 2017, 2018, probably making pretty rapid progress because I was just getting used to like, you know, chuck on reps. Oh, cool. You know, get used to a deadlift bar, just get better at powerlifting in general, just spend more time doing SBD. So it was pretty easy to find gains for those first few years. And then it definitely got harder. Once I got past, I think it was like 930, it was like, this is where, you know, it's a bit of a grind now. Because 930 was the point that I became ahead of everyone else. Before then, I was chasing Nathan Jones, I was chasing Ricky Goodyear, I was chasing Bass, you know, like all of those guys. And then once I hit 930, I was in front. And whether that changes anything in your head or whatever, I don't know. But that seems to be the point where I was like, okay, fuck, shit's hard now. It was much easier to chase people in my mind.
Even looking at like obviously Pro Raw 8 where you went 872 to Pro Raw 9 where you went 930, like that's still a pretty significant jump in a year.
Yeah.
Like that's fucking insane.
And I think Pro 8, I went 9 for 9 as well.
Yeah. You went 325, 197, 350. And then at 9, you went 355, 210, 365.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's not like I had a bad day at Pro 8 either.
No.
But, yeah, I was just chasing, man. I was just like, because that Pro 8 comp was where I came fourth. And only just, if you look at the placings, I tied Nathan Jones on body weight to come fourth. He was slightly lighter. Bass was 2.5 kilos ahead. And then Pumbaa was, I think, like 10 kilos or something ahead. So it was a ridiculously, last deadlift finish, that comp. And it just kind of annoyed me even more. I was just like, fuck, man, fourth, like, you're kidding me. And then just knew that I was like, I know I can beat all these guys. Like, I will definitely fucking beat these dudes. And then I think that year was probably my hardest, like, just training, just pushing so hard to just make sure that the next year when I came in, that it wasn't going to be a last deadlift finish, that it was going to be much easier. But I think it still was. I think it was like second deadlift I won at Pro 19, and then thankfully I say that in a nice way, but thankfully Bass missed his third and allowed me to go for 365, because if Bass got his third, then I would have had to like beat him by 2.5 kilos, which is what Thomas definitely would have made me do, and I would have been super annoyed at that because I wanted to hit that 800. But thankfully he missed it, and it allowed me to kind of like open the gates and just go for it. And that was Pro 9 was my favorite comp to date. It was just like I was just like, in my opinion, like my best there. Mentally absolutely locked in for the whole time. The whole day I was like just on point. I remember the Lily Bridges were there with Bass, and I was just like, not going to help you, man. I'm going to fucking, you're going to get pissed off. They're going to get pissed off. And it's I was just so confident. I remember just being like, almost smugly confident on that day and just being like, yep, I'm ready. And that's how it went down, pretty much.
I love hearing that, because that's such an iconic moment that gets replayed over and over again. The end of that comp and the deadlift to win, and to hear you say that you were so confident going into that. What do you think led to that confidence?
Were you thinking about Pro 9, or are you thinking about the deadlift to win at Pro 11?
Yeah, 11 was cool, but they're all cool, man.
Yeah, when people say pull Darth deadlift for the win, I think most people got, I think, in 11. But yeah, no, if it was 9, what was it? What was the question on that?
What do you think led to that confidence? You just said that you were extremely confident going in, and you were kind of walking around smugly confident. What do you think led to that level of confidence that you had?
Just the training. Like, you can go back through my Instagram and look at that year in between, and just everything was on point. Diet was on point. Like, the training at PTC Gold Coast at that point was just so good. Like, we had such a good training crew. Everyone in there was like just full of elite lifters who were super motivating. And I remember our deadlift Fridays just absolutely going off. And Thomas would let me hit M-RAPs on my last set of deadlifts, and I'd hit like stupid, like 325 for 7 or something. And I was just like, I don't know, just at that point, I was just like, I'm fucking, like, I'm so much better than last year. I don't know. And I just felt untouchable. Which, I don't know. Just, I just knew that was going to be a good day just from all the training.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of what I was hoping you would say, that every time I've ever felt supremely confident in anything that I've ever done in my life, it's always been because of the work done prior and the preparation. And the more of that I'm able to do, the more confident I feel leading into the task, whatever the task is. And I think, powerlifting is no different, obviously.
It is rare in powerlifting that those things happen, that they come together. I don't know. I find that preps like that are pretty scarce. Like, it's a pretty I'm not going to say injury prone because it's not injury prone whatsoever, but like, you know, like we do run into like little niggles constantly almost. More like overused tendon-y things. And obviously, yeah, just life isn't always favorable to powerlifting around it, but it was that time. So I don't know. I wish I could have that back, but but it's a little bit different these days. But you make it work. It's, you know, different challenges. Getting older as well. Life's different.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking it before we pressed record about big dogs at the end of the year. So maybe that could be when you come in confident again. Big Will 125.
I don't know. Is that the minimum? Oh, I guess Ryan Williams did do big dogs at 125, didn't he?
Elton did it at 104.
Yeah, it's hard to say compared to him. But, I'm not near Russian enough. But yeah, I know. I'd feel weird going up against those guys. Yeah, if they brought in I just want. I don't know. I'd love to just hit at this stage. Just hit Pro Raw, one of the bigger comps next year, and be just being able to focus in on that. Life's getting a little bit more smoother now for me, and I'm being able to put in, you know, back in a similar effort back into training lately. So I just got to just build momentum up and just string some wins together.
That's exciting.
Yeah. It's certainly, it's far from perfect. And those Pro Raw 9 sort of times, it was years of perfect. It wasn't just like, you know, 9 or 12 months of good, but so it's hard to compare on that. But I'm hoping that I can be, fingers crossed, get a good, you know, at least 6-9 months of pushing into Pro Raw. So, you know, maybe end of year. We'll see. We'll see how friendly the body is.
You heard it here first.
You don't hold me to it.
Oh no, we're going to.
It happens.
1,000 kilos at Pro Raw 2025.
That was always the goal. Well, actually, that's not the goal. That's kind of like a side goal. Because my goal was always that 400, and then I was like, well, if I get them, I can surely bench 200. You know, like surely that's a given. So I was hoping that, you know, I could hit those, and then that just comes as a byproduct of it. So that's the main goal. But right now, so far off the pace to hit them that it's hard to make any calls for sure.
Yeah, I mean, but in saying that, the last time you prepped, you also said that you were so far off the pace. Went in, did a prep for that last Pro Raw, ended up doing 9 for 9, coming away with the win and having a pretty fantastic day. What was that like?
Yeah, I mean, it was probably about as bad and rocky as a prep can be. Did absolute minimalist volume, like literally like, you know, 1 to 3 sets of squats per week if I was lucky. And then pretty dismal efforts on the other stuff as well, just due to just life being a bit hectic, the gyms, just all of it kind of happening. And, but yeah, still, yeah, it's like you said, still come together to some degree. It comes back quick, man. I remember like would have only been like 6 to 8 weeks out or something like that, and still hitting numbers that were just like unbelievable, so far off those numbers that I did end up hitting. But then it just, I guess like the fact that they weren't scary, like in my mind, it was like, I've done way more than this. So like, whatever, that prep was mentally a little bit easier. And I guess just easier to get back to rather than building up to it for the first time. I think I can get back to those numbers relatively quickly. It's just beyond that, it gets fucking hard, you know. Shit gets heavy real fast. Yeah. It's like people always say, they're like, oh, you know, your best deadlift 387, 12 kilos, doesn't sound that hard. Best squats 385, 15 kilos, not that hard. Turns out it's really fucking hard. Like it's pretty damn heavy, you know. Like 385 is already fucking heavy enough on your back. I remember picking it up. I remember picking up 390. an attempt at the at 110 that I did, and it just been like feeling like it was just like kind of like crush it, like just there was no air to breathe in, like my lungs have just been like kind of compressed into nothing. I was like, yeah, this is heavy. So yeah, it's not that I don't think they aren't there. I just know that like it does get heavy fucking quick. So I don't know how long that's going to take to bridge the gap again. And also there's just a few more challenges in life now. One of the challenges in that last Pro Raw, even though I did go on and on, was just the diabetic stuff. Like, I hadn't dealt with that in a comp before. I've, it's not like I grew up type 1 diabetic like Alana has and stuff like that. It was a late onset thing for me. And so at that point, still figuring out how the fuck do I deal with this thing, because your blood sugar isn't just like, eat food goes up, take insulin goes down. Way more shit at play, it turns out, and stress and adrenaline and like all that fucking shit makes it do crazy things when it's not being regulated by your own insulin and glucagon and stuff. So it just that was a challenge itself, and it will continue to be a challenge. So there's just more factors at play. It's just like fuck, like I just don't know what will happen once it gets to that point again.
Is there a certain point in like a training cycle where you notice is like, okay, like once I reach say like a 330 kilo squat, it has high implications to like your blood sugar levels?
No, so it's the weight's not really got anything to do with it. It's just like output and it honestly could be anything. It's really hard to tell. Like some days I go in, I'll purposely go into training with high blood sugar levels so that I kind of have a little bit of playroom if it does take a dive. And then I'll be like just hitting a few warm-ups, and then it'll just be like crashing into the floor. I'm like, what the hell? Like, this makes no sense. And then other times it's not really seemingly affected at all, even in the hard set. So it's like, it doesn't really seem to have, you can't predict it perfectly. There's just so many little things that are going on in the body to be able to predict it. But I'm a lot better at it now than I was even last year. So it's just like, I understand like being high-ish anyway is not an issue. So usually I'll go in and I'll be drinking like a Gatorade from the get-go in the session, just to kind of like counteract any kind of downsides in blood sugar that's going to be happening. And I'll just ride it out high. And that's probably what I'll do at a comp, to be honest. At that comp, I wasn't sure what would happen, but if I was to do a comp today, I'll just go in and just ride high the whole time and just make sure that I stayed high, because crashing, either going low or even like crashing aggressively towards low it doesn't feel good, but it just makes you like fatigued and drowsy and weak. So, at least I know to avoid that these times anyway. So hopefully it's not an issue, but I would say I'll be really confident with handling it on a day now, but it's still annoying in day-to-day life. Like I'll hit a squat session and then it'll crash, and then it kind of like ruins that session. And like, if you think about it, like over a prep, if you're only squatting once a week, like a typical prep that people would do is like 12 weeks. That's only 12 squat sessions. So you have that for like 2 of them. And that's a decent chunk of your squatting that's kind of turned to shit just from that. Or, even hypertrophy and all that stuff gets dragged into that as well. It just makes all of it a little bit harder to achieve. But yeah, I don't know what else to say. It's just pretty, it's just part of life now. And I'm getting better at every month. So hopefully it's not an issue next time in prep.
If you sort of had to, obviously having spoken about your journey of going from like the Navy into bodybuilding into powerlifting, and then obviously navigating some of the challenges that have come from your diabetes diagnosis, how would you say that your sort of experience sort of combined with your values and philosophies as both a person and as a coach, how does that influence how you now handle and work with your clients?
Not a whole lot really. I'm just more aware of it. I was really lucky when I was diagnosed with it to some degree that I had quite a background in, like, I knew what insulin was. Like, literally just that puts you ahead of fucking most diabetics when they first get diagnosed. I knew what blood sugar was. I knew that how it reacted and how it was balanced in the system. And, like any decent trainer will have at least some idea with it, maybe not to a diabetic level, but roughly an idea of like how insulin works and how all this shit works and how it's involved in hypertrophy and whatnot. And so coming in with that knowledge helped me overcome challenges much faster than most diabetics, I think. Even talking to Alana sometimes with hers, having it her whole life, she's still unaware of some little things. And I'm just like, hey, do you know about this? And she's like, no. And then, we chat about it and whatever. But I think most of the things that you deal with diabetes is taken care of with just like consistency in nutrition, knowing like what a good balanced meal is, knowing that, like just taking care of a lot of the health factors that come into it, and just, I don't know, like a lot of the stuff that I guess you have to do when you have diabetes, I was already doing from years of just like quote unquote good nutrition, and I just understood it a little bit more. So now when I talk to my diabetes educator and that, it's kind of like it's a pretty straightforward conversation, because she's like, have you tried this? Have you done that? And I'm like, yeah, I've been doing that for fucking ever, and it's just with clients. I guess the only thing that's changed since it is just watching HbA1cs and just watching fasted blood glucose and just watching all that a little bit more, especially with my big heavyweight guys, because I'm just like, hey, just picking up on signs of pre-diabetes or insulin resistance or all those things like that a little bit quicker, and how they're responding to food. So it just makes me kind of like nothing new, but just more so just watching it a little bit more carefully.
Do you, like, in your current sort of base of clients that you work with, when you got your diagnosis of diabetes, did you find that you then had people who were diabetic coming to you like, hey, I need coaching and I've also got diabetes and I need help with it?
No, not really. No, surprisingly not. I mean, it's a pretty rare thing that you see diabetic powerlifters. There's definitely a couple in Australia that have reached out and that I chat to. Alana would be the most well-known, and then there's a couple more here within Australia, and then in the world, you've got like Jess Bittner, AFL players, fucking like all other sports have a couple. But powerlifting doesn't seem to be a sport of choice for most of them. It's usually endurance sports that most diabetics are involved in. Because I guess it's a little bit more manageable from like an adrenaline and like all these other kind of stresses that can kind of affect it. Like it just, I don't know, they seem to be easier on those like lower, slower intensity sort of things. I talked to I had a lot more like parents and like, just people involved with diabetics who've been like, my kids are a type 1 diabetic and they do sport or whatever, but they're always like not sure, and so seeing you is like a good thing for them. And so like I get a lot of those, which is kind of cool. That's kind of the children. Like I said, when I came into this thing, I had a really good base knowledge on how it all worked, and it really helped me pick it up pretty quick, and I think I'm pretty lucky for that. But I just couldn't imagine. There are still days where I get pissed off because shit just doesn't fucking make sense, where I'm like, why is my shit going low? Like I've just eaten, or why is it high? Like it doesn't make any fucking sense based on all these things that I know. And that's having a good knowledge base. So I can't imagine being a kid, like playing out in the playground and you're just like, trying to figure this fucking thing out and why all the other kids don't have it. Like that to me, I just, would be really shit, So like, I try to help out with them a bit more. We're trying to do a little bit more education here, even on the Gold Coast, just hooking up with some local diabetic nurses and or like businesses that are like diabetic educators and stuff like that I see, to try and like do some little like lifting seminars and stuff with them to show them that it's not super scary and stuff like that. But we're still in the sort of organization sort of phase with that sort of stuff, because at first I was like, I don't really like, you'll see it's not in my Instagram bio, it's none of that, I don't really talk about it a whole heap on Instagram, don't make a big deal out of it, because it's just like not a thing that I was like, I don't really want to be like, oh, that's that diabetic powerlifter dude or whatever. It was like, kind of want on the business side, like Nexus to still be there and that we work with a bunch of fucking awesome people and do really good things, not so much that it's linked to diabetes in any way. And same with me as a lifter. I don't want people to be like diabetic powerlifter. I want people to just be like strong fucking dude, and just leave it at that. So I don't talk about it a whole lot, but certainly not shy to talk about it when it's going to help people.
Yeah. I mean, speaking about, you brought up Nexus, and I was talking to Brandon from Epic just the other day. Shout out Brandon, he's coming on next week as well. And you actually came up in conversation, and we're talking about the fact that great athletes often don't make great coaches. And he actually said that you would be one of the very few exceptions to that rule. And obviously myself having had access to coaching through you and through Nexus and access to Nexus on the back end through the mentorship, and kind of seeing how that works, and having a lot of conversations with you on the back end about some of the things that you've gone through in building Nexus. I guess I would really like to hear your thoughts on what you thought Nexus would be when you first started it, and how that quickly transitioned into the gyms, and then over the last few years, seeing the rapid growth and the things that you guys have really been doing, especially over the last kind of 12 months. I've noticed you guys putting in a lot of work and a lot of growth. I'd really like to hear you talk about that a little bit, because I'm super interested in that from the outside.
Yeah, well, firstly, it's far from rapid, that's for sure. Been at work for a long time. Started in 2014, as far as the name goes. Back in those bodybuilding, kind of end of bodybuilding days. And it was me and a few friends, trainers actually, not so much lifters, but trainers. And we thought, hey, like, let's come together and kind of do a brand where that's what Nexus means. It's like a collection or coming together of things. And initially it was a coming together of like good trainers and just trying to be a little bit different and help each other out in that way. It's not so much like that anymore. But yeah, that started in Cairns, and then we moved down to the Gold Coast, and then it kind of evolved from, at that point, just me being a PT in a gym to starting to coach more people around Australia online. And that's when it was like, okay, let's get a brand name that is not just my name. And and we had already done the Nexus thing with friends, and it was like, cool, let's just ask them if they were cool with us just taking that name, running with that name on the Gold Coast as us. And yeah, we moved down here, and at that point it was still just me, really. Just coaching at that point, picking up more powerlifters, because obviously, like, I was starting to get more powerlifting clients, and from my own powerlifting, jumping in powerlifting, and then got to the point where I was running the nutrition and the coaching at that point, and then it kind of got to the point where like I couldn't handle it much anymore. Mickey had just kind of was just managing a couple local gyms, commercial gyms, and so I said, quit that job and come on board and just work with me. And so she did that and started the nutrition side of Nexus. And then over the years, we just slowly added things on as they came along. So we brought on Zach as our first coach, and then other coaches kind of brought people in. And then, over that time, over the years, was slowly just buying equipment, just because I was like, whenever a good deal would come up, like a good Facebook marketplace, some machine would come up that I liked, I was like, I'll grab that and just put it in my garage for a rainy day. That rainy day was COVID. Thankfully, it came to that point, and we just had a heap of shit in the garage, which is just a one car, tiny little garage that we just crammed in, but it worked for COVID. And then after that, we moved into this place where we had a lot more space under the house. We expanded, dug all that out, made ourselves like a sick home gym. And we were like, this is fucking great. I love this. But then only like 6 months later or something, decided like, screw it. Let's like actually run into a gym, because heaps of people were like, oh, fuck, I want to come train there. And I was like, well, wasn't really made for that. So yeah, then we just stumbled across the place where the gym is now, the Gold Coast gym, and yeah, and just went for it. But there wasn't really a plan for that. I'd always said like I didn't really want a gym. I didn't really like. I was happy with the online, the numerous benefits to the online coaching. You know, there's no real overhead, so a lot less risk. It's, I wouldn't say easier, but just different online. It's a different strategy completely. And then, yeah, but it just came across the point where our coaching was going great. We had a bunch of coaches working for us that just made things a little bit easier, ran a little bit smoothly. The mentorship at that point had launched and went well in its first iteration. So I know it just felt like the next, like, it's like, fuck, what are we doing next? What are we doing next? And so the gym was like, okay, fuck it, let's do it. What's the worst that can happen sort of attitude to it. And yeah, and then opened that. And now we're a couple of years in, we said. So yeah, it's the gym still is difficult. It's like I said, at the start, I was kind of like, oh, maybe it's like a similar thing. It won't be that bad. But it is a completely different beast of a business model when it comes to like, you know, attracting people online and coaching people online and coaching athletes versus like, hey, now it's a space where we just need like people in the door, because the gym I see as a catalyst for people to come into powerlifting. You know, it's not like there's enough competitive powerlifters on the Gold Coast that are just going to be like, oh, fuck yeah, there's powerlifting gyms opened up, I'm going to go train there. Like we would have like, we would have like 3 members or some shit if that was the approach. So whereas online you can do that because you got access to everyone all over the world. So we had to go like, okay, how do we get new people into the sport? And that's how it is. So over the years of the gym, that's essentially what we've had to learn, and it's still very much learning. Is like how to, you know, it's the gyms are bringing people into the sport, and the online's more catering to the people who are in the sport. But yeah, that's the brief history of Nexus and how it's evolved over the years. Townsville came exactly a year after the Gold Coast one, and again that was just more on wasn't kind of planned, was just kind of like just happened. Was offered the opportunity to take over the space up there in Townsville. I already knew a bunch of the members through powerlifting, and I loved the space. Had been there a couple of times, and saw, I guess, opportunity in it, and so and that's been running on a bit over a year now. So they both come with a lot of hassle and a lot of stresses and different lessons and everything. But yeah, that's where we are today with the 2 gyms, the online still going strong, still working out that. The mentorship still kicking there. So got our fingers in a lot more different things than what we did to start.
Mm-hmm. Very nice.
Yeah, that's that.
Yeah. On a little bit of a, I guess, like a little bit of a tangent here. If you could have dinner with anyone, dead or alive, who would it be and why?
What the fuck? This isn't a tangent. This is like,
it's like a fucking veer off completely.
Jesus. I would, years ago, I would have said somebody within powerlifting, everything, because it was my life, you know, especially like those, like we were talking about those pro 8, 9, 10 days. Being like, who are the fucking best coaches and powerlifters on the planet? Like, they're the people that I want to be surrounded with. Whereas now, not to say that I don't have anything to learn in powerlifting, I still feel like fitness is forever evolving. So it's still, I'm still always thinking of that, but it's, I guess, it's just a different mindset these days in regard to fitness. So it wouldn't be fitness, but it probably would be an athlete still of some kind, like just the best in their sport, whether it was, you know, like a Rafa or something in tennis, or someone like that who's just like really gritty and just fucking driven and just the best at their sport. Because I just love to get inside those people's heads and just go like, what makes this person fucking tick? Because I just try, I'm not saying I've been on their level, but I just love to see the differences and the effort that goes into such a huge achievement like that. So yeah, it would be a high level athlete at some point. I'm just thinking tennis because like I love watching the tennis and I love their grit and I don't know how the fuck they do it. I think it's one of like the hardest sports, the outcome. So I just my mind. Well, I'll probably go to one of them, either like Federer or Rafa or one of those guys.
Tennis is a super impressive sport, and some of those guys stay at the top of the game for a really fucking long time.
That's what I don't get. Like, I don't get it. That's
like
why I love it.
How long's Rafa been great for?
Well, him or Djokovic or one of those guys. I just don't understand. Djokovic, I don't understand how you go 20 years in the game at the top. Even just watching one game just makes me like, okay, cool. Like this would fucking kill me. Like 5 hours.
Yeah, it's not a gentle sport.
Running back and forth, max effort sprints essentially, like running the bip test essentially for fucking 5 hours, and then having one day off, and then doing it again for 6 rounds or however long the opens are. I'm just like, man, fuck. I don't know. To me, that's like, I don't know, pinnacle of like athletes. I think so anyway. I just think they're all around just ridiculous, mentally and physically.
Yeah, I agree. I'd probably someone like Djokovic would be. I'd love to have a conversation with him.
I think it'd be fucking funny. That's why. That's why I said Rafa. I don't know. I think there's something about it just where he's like, maybe he wasn't the most gifted player, but just like would absolutely, make it happen somehow every time. So I don't know why he appeals to me, but he does.
Cool. So off the back of that, we're kind of doing this thing with every guest where the previous guest gets to ask the following guest a question.
Don't do that.
Yeah, but you don't get to know who the person was that asked you a question and the person
Did you just say it was
you asked
Jordan,
a question of.
No?
No, it might not have been.
Ah, okay.
You don't know. But the question that you got asked was, if you could create a billboard anywhere, what would it say and where would it be?
Man, this is like never good at these questions. Why do you do this to me?
I didn't do it. Someone else did.
Fuck, I don't know.
You could literally just write.
Yeah, I can talk about fitness all day, and then you fucking throw this shit at me.
You could just write like 1K at 110, and then sign it and put it like outside base gym.
Fuck. Best friend, thank you.
Shots fired.
Well, yeah, I haven't done that yet, so that would be an absolute bold as fuck move, and absolutely put so much pressure on myself, it would be ridiculous. Man, fuck, I don't know. Absolutely stumped me on that. Fuck, this is such a terrible outcome to this segment for you. So I feel like I've let the team down massively. No, fuck, I don't know. I'm sorry to whoever asked me that, but I've absolutely stumped and blown your question away.
I'll send this to them.
What?
Well, I'll clip this up and send it to them as your answer.
No, don't do that. Say that I had a fucking awesome answer and it was, you can't.
It's too good to post. So, well, I guess the same question applies to you then. If you're, what's one question that you want to ask our next guest without knowing who it is?
I feel like I don't want to do that to somebody else and absolutely like throw them a ridiculous curveball.
That's kind of the point, though.
No, yeah, but it's mean. Then they're gonna end up like me and just feel like fucking idiot.
I'm gonna ask you the other question that we
help me out, Hugh.
so
I'm fucking terrible
that you can kind of see the level of questions that have previously been asked. This question was asked by
the fella. These could all be written by Johnny V. Bad. I swear when I went on his podcast, it was like 12 questions of just like shit where I was just like, man, I don't know what you were doing last night, but you've been in another world. That guy is the king of just random shit.
Well, yeah, he probably was in another world. So here's a question for you that was asked by one of Australia's best powerlifters currently serving as one of Australia's best powerlifters. Do you wear a squat plug, and what color is it?
I feel like I know who asked that one. There's one rather large Australian that would ask, well, not even Australian, one rather large person that would ask something like that.
Yeah, I think you're on the money.
But, yeah. Fuck, I don't know. Oh, man. You have to let me have a think on it and come back to it.
You can DM it to me later.
All right, we'll do that. Because it's... No, it's being on the spot with this sort of stuff absolutely fucking throws me every time. This is why I write notes for my podcast, by the way, because this is what it would end up if Josh just like fire chat me. This is what it would end up being, just like circles.
It's half the fun, though.
Yeah, it is. I'm a very, I don't know what it is with my head, but I'm very I need to. This is actually why I like powerlifting. Because shit just doesn't change. And I feel like it's honestly, it's a high level lifter thing as well. It's like an autistic fucking ADHD mix of,
you're in the right spot then.
Whereas like the bar, you're walking in the gym and like the bar's 20 kilos and like all the plates are like color coded to like the exact same weight. And like, it's like it's slightly heavier than last week, or like there's slight progressions, and it all like, it's kind of like a math, like makes sense game, but it kind of isn't if you understand it even deeper than that. But it's just like shit doesn't change. And I swear that's just how my head operates as well, and why I like powerlifting, because it's just like I can go in. I did 5x5 last week at whatever, and I'm going to do slightly heavier this week at whatever, and I can kind of make it. It's almost like a little game of, but it's all planned. It's a planned game. It's not like footy. As much as I loved footy and playing footy when I was younger, but it's not like that where like some fucking you train hard and you're ready as hell, and then some guy tackles you in the back of the knee and fucking ruins it. So
yeah, it's a lot more chaotic. Whereas powerlifting it all just kind of makes sense from a progression standpoint.
And that's how my head works. That's how it is. It's all planned. It's all on track. That's how I operate, and probably what makes me better at powerlifting than other sports.
Fantastic. I think that's a great place for us to finish up. Ben, did you have anything else?
No, I think we've covered everything I wanted to cover.
And more.
And more. What do you have coming up, mate? Do you have anything coming up that you want to kind of tell people about? Mentorships, powerlifting competitions, coaching positions?
Well, I've literally only just locked in the mentorship date for this year. A little late, but just had to be. And that's kicking off on July 1st. So I think I've got 13 weeks to start pushing it out to the world. Other than the people that I've privately reached out to, this is the first time that I've mentioned it for this year. But that's the Nexus Powerlifting Mentorship. It's kind of it's more, we do have athletes that sign up, but more of a coach's mentorship where it's aimed at trying to make powerlifting coaches better powerlifting coaches. And it's a mentorship with me. So it's more just like similar to this. We're on a call and we're just chatting shit about powerlifting and bouncing ideas and helping each other through it, as well as formal content, more like a course. So I'm looking forward to running that again. And then if you're in the Gold Coast or Townsville, drop into the gyms. Guarantee you won't find a better powerlifting gym, better people. So in either location. So that's that. And always looking for coaching people. But if you like what I'm about and everything there, and you like what I stand for, then reach out, because chances are we'll get along.
Mm-hmm. And where can people find you? What's your Instagram?
At WCroz. If you just look up William Crozier, you'll find me on there. The search function will work. Or you can go to nexusperformance.com.au and find out about the gyms, the coaching, the nutrition, the mentorship, the everything else that we do.
Yeah. Perfect. Thanks so much, Will. And anyone that is on the fence about doing the mentorship with Will, I would highly recommend jumping in it. Obviously, I've done it, and I can't speak highly enough of it. I don't know if I've told you this personally or not. I know I've sent you a video saying as such, but I definitely attribute much of who I am today as a coach to not only the mentorship, but to having the pleasure of being coached with you and working with you closely one-on-one and being able to have access to your brain and just seeing how you do things and having the conversations that we had definitely shaped my view of coaching for the positive. So if anyone else is thinking about doing that, I literally cannot speak highly enough of it. So you should definitely do it. And if you have any other questions about it, if you don't want to ask Will about it, reach out and ask me about it, because I'll definitely say the same thing to you in the DMs. Yeah.
No, that means a lot. I know you've a bunch of courses. You're not exactly, it's not like you've just done that and that's it. I know you've done other mentorships, other courses, S&C courses, fucking everything. You've done more education than most people. So that coming out of your mouth is a big call. I like it.
Cool. All right, man. Chat to you soon.
Thanks for joining us.
Love it.